Yeah, let me show you something, okay? Take a look at this. This has been my setup for the past like week or so. I believe I landed like 2 weeks ago. But anyways, check this out. Ta-da! My own Windows Linux machine. So I've been testing battery life with this OLED screen, also testing this RTX 5090 with Steam. I've created a Linux Android setup with the Asus ProArt P16. And I think this laptop definitely took a beating, but it's been able to manage it well. Let me show you the chassis of this thing. I switched from macOS to Linux with yet again another Windows machine. But interestingly enough, this isn't just any Windows laptop. In fact, this is the ProArt P16, a laptop I compared to my MacBook Pro last year. And after taking it to Germany for our Porsche shoot, I wanted to push it even further, and not with another review, but by actually living with it and turning it into a Linux machine. By the way, if you guys enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing. And if you want to see a using Linux after 30 days video, please let me know down below. So realistically, I've been using this for a month. I unboxed this November 4th, and I've been using it ever since. And the chassis has definitely survived plane rides, bags with camera gear, car rides, and editing abroad. It's done a lot for us. This is a matte black laptop, so take that into account. You have to clean it often really to get the most out of it aesthetically. I did kind of scratch this full aluminum nano black body with my camera cage. It's got a few scratches here and there, but that's because I had my camera, some gear, and the laptop in the same bag. And in the car while filming abroad, I often had it in the back seat with stuff over it. It's really nice though. It's one of those laptops that is simple but clean. And it sounds silly, but aside from specs, the looks made me really want to turn this into a Linux machine. But truthfully, the actual real reason for the switch is because I'm installing a full home lab at home. So I want this to be my home machine for the most part. It's been a while that I've dual boot a Windows PC with Linux. Listen, I'm having a bit of a problem here. My mouse pointer is kind of laggy, and it has nothing to do with the laptop because it works so well on Windows. It's actually really soft, but anyways, yeah, I don't know if you guys can tell. I mean, it seems like there are some people online with the same issues. It's not the first Reddit thread that I found related to this. I also found a video on YouTube titled 20 Things to Do After Installing PopOS, so I'm going to take a look at that. Apparently, using hybrid graphics is something really good. It's something that PopOS offers, and it's really cool. People really like PopOS for that. I'm running the NVIDIA RTX 5090 on this laptop, which I absolutely love. It's really great. Listen, one thing I tried the other day was switching from GNOME to KDE because apparently it's a smoother experience. I did that, and then when I would boot my laptop, it would just boot a black screen, so that wasn't working properly. It could be because I'm dual booting Linux with Windows. Could be that, not 100% sure, but I'm just trying to set this up so I could have a proper Android and Linux ecosystem. The ports all work perfectly, and that might sound like a weird thing to highlight, but even after installing Linux, everything still worked without any problems. I did run into a Bluetooth issue when I was first installing Linux. For some reason, the Bluetooth service was active, but it just wouldn't connect to anything. Eventually, I figured it out. Apparently, I needed to disable fast boot. Wi-Fi card, it also works well. In fact, you can always replace it if you ever need to, but I used this while I was traveling a lot, of course. Most of it was while hotspotting my phone to the laptop for networking, and even using local send to transfer files back and forth, or just quickly copy paste data between devices. It worked like a charm on Windows, and now it works like a charm on Linux, so it's good. I also added KDE to that mix, but I'll talk about it later. Now, this is a laptop that charges with a 240 watt brick. It delivers HDMI 2.1 for 4K 120Hz support or 8K at 60Hz. That pairs with a power delivery USB 4 port, a 3.2 USB port with a headphone jack, and a full SD card slot, right next to some USB-A 3.2 and USB-C 3.2 ports. But the nicest thing about it is that it's got this gorgeous 120Hz OLED panel. And yes, I know what you're thinking, a 5090 with an OLED panel on a laptop? Battery life must be a whole thing. Yeah, listen, first of all, extremely happy with the panel. even more with the integration I got from Linux. When I was installing PopOS, instantly Linux recognized the touchscreen of this laptop and the whole UI feels really smooth. I'm sure part of that is because my active refresh rate is actually running at 120 Hz. But listen, this 5090 powers this 16-inch OLED 4K panel that runs 120 Hz. In real-world SDR use, it outputs about 680 nits, and it can indeed reach up to 1600 nits in HDR content. It is a gorgeous panel. It's actually really hard to complain about it. Aside from the screen's reflectivity, it can get quite glossy, especially when you are outdoors, and at 680 nits, the usability outside can be a bit tricky. Other than that, this screen is absolutely amazing. With this, you'll get accurate and vibrant colors with deep contrast and true blacks. The details and the resolution it outputs are sharp, and it's great for 4K content, especially while editing on DaVinci. I also ran a pure black test on this OLED, and as expected, the screen basically disappears. The blacks are actually black and not that washed out gray you see on IPS panels. I've also realized that there's no glow or fringing around text like you sometimes get on cheaper OLED panels. Like I said, the only thing that bothered me was the glossiness of this panel. But the thing is that once you produce content or you game on this, that annoyingness disappears, especially when you get a lot out of your GPU. And the good news is that my GPU delivered consistent performance on Linux, matching what I was getting in Windows. I was actually really happy with the way it was behaving during gameplay, and more importantly, very happy with thermals. So it turns out I got my FLIR device to finally work. It works on my S25 Ultra, but on the other phones it doesn't really work. Anyways, take a look at this. It gets extremely hot up there. Look at that. 55 degrees about. Yeah. Everywhere else towards the keyboard is pretty good, especially the WASD keys. That's pretty good. It doesn't really get that hot, but here, oh man, to the touch, it's cooking. It's cooking. I do feel though that it has great thermal dissipation because everything is sort of pushed towards the back and nothing really dissipates towards the keyboard, which is great, right? Because you're using the keys and stuff and you're typing, you don't really want it to get smoking hot there. That was me a couple of days ago troubleshooting and making sure PopOS was running fine. And up until today, it sure runs fine. So I spent quite a bit of time with it. Trust me, I mean, with Linux, the say goes, the good news is that you can do anything, and the bad news is that you can do anything. So the setup process was quite a bit long, especially for someone who doesn't have much experience with Linux. But the good thing is that after mounting drivers, connecting to my local server from a Windows machine, setting up DaVinci, installing all my games, making sure Mango UHD ran well, I was able to test this for editing and gaming. And listen, a timeline like DaVinci runs really well on the Asus ProArt P16. In fact, our entire Porsche project that we've been working on with 422 footage, shot in log with effects, music, text, and so on, the ProArt P16 really just kills it. It kills it. And then switching into gaming, I mean, just the other day I was playing Starfield quite a lot, and I was testing it to make sure temps made sense. I was running PopOS on either hybrid mode or NVIDIA mode, and really making sure my gaming experience was smooth, and it was. With Starfield, for example, a game that can be pretty demanding depending on how you set it up, you can average 30 frames per second with high settings and absolutely no upscaling or frame generation. With frame generation on and DLSS set to quality, you can expect about 40 to 50 frames per second at high resolution, keeping temperatures at what seems to be 80 to 90 degrees for the GPU and about 90 to 95 degrees for the CPU after a long gaming sesh. All of this while running Linux. And the performance on Windows has been fine, like any other Windows laptop really, but my goal here was to try and get PopOS feel better than Windows, especially for someone like me who edits, transfers files, games a bit, and uses their machine for real creator work with some Linux functionality needed from time to time. Look, PopOS feels lighter, like opening apps, moving files, multitasking, connecting devices. I feel like I'm really starting to see the benefits of having a laptop this powerful. It treats powerful hardware like it matters. At the end of the day, PopOS exposes me to real GPU modes, real CPU governors, real power management tools, and real logs and other tools, of course. Listen, I spent the other day solving so many little nitty-gritty things, like for example, installing Mango Hub properly. Man, that I spent so much time trying to solve that. Turns out that I had installed Steam with Flatpak, which means that Steam practically just runs inside its own container. So anything installed basically outside that container was invisible. So I spent like so much time just typing and troubleshooting. But yeah, after going back and forth with ChatGPT for a while, I finally managed to get it working. And honestly, at this point, it's safe to say I've been doing a lot of typing on this keyboard, especially with all these conflicts I've been trying to sort out. And there was a lot, trust me, but the keys are super stable. Very stable keys for the most part. Also, no wobble at all. They've got this reasonably light actuation force. Key travel sits at around 1.7 millimeters, which gives the keys a nice amount of depth and makes typing feel more satisfying and less shallow than what you get on most thin and light laptops. And key texture, it's standard. It's standard matte plastic. It feels smooth under your finger, although, like I mentioned, it tends to show smudges after heavy use. Function keys are great. In fact, most of them work on Linux, and I say most of them because there are a couple of ones that don't really do anything. I think it's because they are mostly useful in Windows, but it's a great keyboard. Not as good as some would like it to be for competitive gaming, but for productivity, it's great. My only complaint aside from keys getting really oily would be the size of the arrow keys. I feel like they should be a tad bigger for a 16-inch laptop. Now, I did open this up because I thought that thermals were pretty good for what this packs. I wanted to see what I was dealing with, really. And the Asus Pro RP16, it's got dual fans, multiple heat pipes, a large exhaust vent that pushes heat out efficiently even when the RTX 50 is under load. And it doesn't just push out air anywhere, really. It pushes air towards the back really efficiently. In fact, if I point the mic right here, you guys will get to hear it. This also delivers a second NVMe slot, which in hindsight I should have used instead of creating a partition on the main drive. And like always, I would have loved if this laptop offered upgradable RAM. I feel like it's something we should always push for. Regardless, booting times for Linux and Windows seem healthy. As for the speakers and the webcam, I took the time to download this software on Linux that lets me use the webcam. This is a 1080p webcam and it does the job for the most part. The speakers, however, very impressive for a Windows laptop. It's a 6-speaker system tuned by Harman Kardon.
So, paying a visit to the people of scenic Tau Ceti 2. Nice easy one for your first job. Just keep your head on swivel and you'll come home safe.
When it comes to battery life, I primarily used this with Windows while I was traveling. For the most part, with my workflow, I remember coming back and taking a look at my battery life graphs, and I was averaging about 4 hours of screen time using Chrome, DaVinci, and Local Send for the most part. I remember I once went to eat and I left the laptop transferring footage with sleep mode off, and it came back after 4 hours later to a battery life of about 15% with 45 minutes left. Now, I did a test with Linux and I was able to get about 3 hours. The interesting thing though is that I got 3 hours knowing that Linux was fully utilizing my GPU. And those 3 hours I got by doing things such as figuring out why I couldn't connect to my server over SMB, lots and lots of ChatGPT and Chrome, using the terminal non-stop, YouTube, trying to figure out how path mapping worked on DaVinci. All that from 8:20 a.m. to about 11 something p.m. The one thing I do want to test though is battery life in hybrid mode, but I want to give this Linux setup 30 days and come back to you guys. Listen, I put PopOS on the Asus Pro RP16 just to see if this machine could handle my real creator workflow on Linux, and honestly, to find out if it could replace parts of my macOS routine. This was the main idea, so I can spend more time with Linux and really understand what I need to do with my home lab, which I know won't run on PopOS necessarily, but I was able to really get the most out of this laptop with it. Plus, I installed other apps such as KDE Connect along local SAN, and this is what really creates that interconnectivity between Android and Linux. And I find it insane how quick KDE is at sending files to your computer, how easy it is to copy and paste from your Android device to your PC. And it's even got this remote input feature that controls your mouse cursor from the phone, which is kind of crazy, I'm not gonna lie. Look, when I was setting it all up, I also decided to download Google Photos to keep my photos from the S25 Ultra accessible on the P16 at all times, and I also downloaded Messages as an app, which I then synced to my laptop, you know, in order to use it whenever I want to just text someone from it. This is pretty much how I've switched from my MacBook and created an entire ecosystem with my S25 Ultra in order to interconnect my phone and my laptop together. After everything I've put this thing through, the travel, the shooting days, the editing, gaming, the PopOS experience, I absolutely love this version of the ProArt P16. It's just a crazy powerful laptop that keeps up with my workflow, whether I'm on Windows or Linux. If you are a creator who needs a machine that adapts to you instead of the other way around, the P16 is honestly one of the best options out there. This, guys, is my setup, a setup I will be rocking for the next 30 days, so I will be updating you in 30 days.